Hey everybody, Nate BMX here, and welcome back to another batch of Pokemon Showdown matches. And this time, I have 12 matches to show you, not 10 but 12. And the reason that I'm showing you 12, such a random, strange, arbitrary number, is because they're all against the same person. So I had a match against this person, Zane886, who was new to Pokemon Showdown. They hadn't played Pokemon since like Gen 5, I think. So they were kind of a noob. They were unaware of like fairy type and a lot of things. And unlike a lot of people in this, they were chatty. So like a lot of people come on and maybe they'll say something at the beginning like good luck, and maybe they'll say GG at the end. I always say GG, but maybe, win or lose, I always say it. But maybe they'll say like one or two things, but usually there's not a whole lot of chatting going along, which I think is kind of a shame because it is an opportunity to meet people who are interested in the same things that you're interested in. So this kid, he's this kid from 18-year-old, so to me a kid, technically an adult, to me he's a kid, from England, and we started chatting, and after the first match, I was like, do you want to go again? And then we kept going and going. We actually played for a couple hours. Obviously, it's not going to take a couple hours to watch back the replays and narrate. But what's really cool is you're going to see how he gets better, because I was actually giving him a lot of tips in the chat on how to play and how to anticipate and how to play mind games. And I really feel that towards the end, he was starting to get good. So that's also really cool. So this is sort of how he started off really not knowing what he was doing, and then really started to show some skills at playing mind games and getting used to having to deal with fairy types and, knowing which Pokemon are good. Because there was a few times where he said, "Oh, I got a terrible team," and then I would see what his team was, and I'd be like, "No, this is good. You're just because certain Pokemon are bad in game, like when you're playing them, like it's not great to have Tauros, because it's like, why would you have Tauros when you can have Snorlax, because Tauros you get so much further along. And, well, actually, you can get Tauros first now that I think. No, you have to get Snorlax first. But anyway, Tauros is really good in battles, and I told him there's a few Pokemon that seem really innocuous, like Shaman, that are really good in battles, in multiplayer. So let's show it. So here's the first matchup. So he starts out with a Grumpig lead, and I have Ludicolo. Ludicolo is a really tough Pokemon to go around. He just decides to go for the Toxic right away. I don't really have anything for Grumpig, so Hydro Pump does a lot of damage. I figure I'll just try that. That worked out pretty well. He hits me with Psychic. It does okay. Another Hydro Pump takes him down to the red. Toxic's going to rack up. Ludicolo doesn't have a whole lot of health, but I managed to survive that last Toxic, and I took him down with Ice Beam. The reason I swapped to Ice Beam there was just in case he decided to switch into something that would take water better, because I was thinking he might switch into something, that takes water better, and maybe Ice would do better. So I went down as well there. So Tentacruel comes out. I have Musharna. I hit it with Psyshock. That's just going to absolutely body it. He swaps over to Stack Attack, and now Stack Attack, it's a Gen 7 Ultra Beast. He's not familiar with it. I'm expecting Trick Room. He never used it, so this is, like I said, he's starting to get a little better. I decided to swap over to Volcanion. He did get the poison spikes up, and Stone Edge really hurts, but I know I can get at least one really good attack off with Volcanion. I get Superpower off. Unfortunately, it's not enough to take down Stack Attack. It's pretty bulky in defense, and he takes me down with the Earthquake, but I feel like Volcanion did his job there. So, technically losing, but I send in Drapion to pick up the Toxic Spike, and I just decided to use Knockoff. I actually thought that would, end this Stack Attack, but I forgot that it had an Air Balloon that was already popped, so it did less damage. It does resist it. The second Knockoff's going to go down. Unfortunately, I did take an Earthquake there, but Drapion's pretty bulky, so he was able to survive that pretty well. So Goodra comes in. I decided just to go for Poison Jab, just because I'm thinking, this thing's probably going to kill me. Let me just try to get it poisoned. It has Earthquake. Once again, Drapion is very bulky in defense, so I actually managed to survive that. So I was like, well, now I can just get a knockoff off, and actually killed the Goodra. It was wearing an Assault Vest, which I didn't notice. I thought that Poison Jab did pretty good damage. I can only imagine how much it would have done without the Assault Vest. So in comes the Tentacruel. They outspeed me, get the Scald off. I figured that would happen. But Tentacruel's obviously holding a life orb. I was hoping it would go down there, but it survives on just 2%. I send Masharna back out. He's going to go with the Toxic Spikes. I no longer have the Poison type to pick them up, but he goes down to the Psyshock pretty easily there. Chandelure comes in, is a really cool, really dangerous Pokemon. I decided to swap over to Xurkitree because I figure, he's going to set up, and I was right on that. And I can just pretty much get a pretty safe swap in other than the Poison. I went for Thunderbolt just because it's stab and it's pretty reliable. They went for Fire Blast. I actually did not take that, so he goes down. So, yeah, I didn't have a very good team here. I had a really crappy team. Entei was really the only Pokemon on my team that was any good. I got off the Stomping Tantrum. Not a great move, but enough to take down Chandelure. So his last Pokemon is Florges. Florges is a fairy type. Like I said, not super familiar with that. I swapped over to Masharna. I don't really have much for this. He went for Moonblast. He gives me a special attack drop, which really frickin' sucks. Really frickin' sucks. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit here. So he went for Protect, obviously hoping to get a little more poison damage off on me. I went for Heal Bell, actually, so no poison damage, and I'm getting a little back from leftovers anyway. So the second Moonblast hits me. I decide I probably can get a Calm Mind up. The second Moonblast doesn't do as much because now my special defense is up. Signal Beam doesn't do much, but I was really just hoping to confuse it, and that actually worked out pretty well because now it's confused. And now I'm just going to start pounding it with Psyshock. I don't really have anything super effective. I don't have any poison type moves. I don't have any steel type moves. So he gets off the Wish, but unfortunately for him, it's not going to work because I'm outspeeding him. Well, he used Wish again. I don't know what that was all about, but he didn't have the time to get the health back, and that's going to be game. So here's the second game. So he started off with Probopass in this one, and I start out with Wormadam. So I'm like, okay, Wormadam's annoying. Let's see what I can do to it. So he went for Toxic against me. That's not going to work. I went ahead and threw out the Stealth Rocks, which is good because he swapped into Tapu Koko. So I went for Gyro Ball. That would have really done well on Probopass. And it also does well in Tapu Koko. I mean, it doesn't do bad. So I throw the Toxic on him. Nothing too bad there. The Brave Bird really didn't do much. Wormadam is really annoying. So I throw out the Protect just to get a little more toxic damage. He went for Nature's Madness. So I'm like, okay, that just reveals a little bit more of his sets and what he has. He went for Volt Switch. So he's getting out of there, and he sends in Victini. So Victini gets hit pretty hard by Stealth Rocks, and it's actually going into my Gyro Ball, which is actually really good for Victini because it, of course, resists Steel type. So I decided to swap over to Volcanion because I know there's a V-Create coming. Volcanion double resists fire, and of course his speed, his defense, and his special defense are at 2/3 right now. So that's a really good swap on my part. Steam Eruption is absolutely going to body Victini. There was no way it was coming back from that. So not a bad start to this battle at all. So in comes Tapu Koko. It's not going to be able to do much. It got hit by the Stealth Rocks, and it's already toxic poisoned. But he's just Volt Switching, and that does a lot of damage to Volcanion. In comes Latias. I had gone for Substitute, which really sucks because now I don't have enough health to do it. It would have been great to get the Substitute before the Volt Switch, but oh well, he gets me a Thunderbolt, so, not bad. So, I sent out my Eviolite Chansey here. They went for Thunderbolt. Chansey's just a special wall. You really need physical moves to take it down. I went for Toxic. I don't think that this Chansey even had any attacking moves. It had Protect and Toxic, obviously, and I think it had Soft Boiled or Recover. I forget which one. And then I forget what the other thing was. I guess we'll find out. So he swaps over to Probopass. I actually had gone for, that was the other move, it was Counter. I had actually gone for Counter, figuring, he's going to use a physical move because you have to against Chansey, and if I can survive it, I can get him with that. Well, and the other move was Thunder Wave. So Thunder Wave paralyzes the Probopass. He uses Toxic. I swap out to Reuniclus. So the Power Gem actually would have been a pretty good hit on the Chansey. Thankfully, Reuniclus has a little bulkier in defense. I went for Focus Miss. Of course, that doesn't do anything. And they get the Toxic off on me. So then the Focus Miss finally hits. So Babu Beep, Probopass is done. So out comes Sudowoodo, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a really interesting choice since I just used Focus Miss. He has Sucker Punch. It doesn't do quite the damage, and thankfully Focus Miss actually hits. Sudowoodo is absolutely bodied, so and Gunny's been going insane all day. So Latias comes out. Obviously, I can't use Focus Miss on a Latias. They went for Draco Meteor, and that's going to be enough. So, but that's okay. Reuniclus really did a lot of work there, and now the Latias' special attack is dropped, so I bring out Blacephalon. Now, Blacephalon could be a real hoe. He could be really hard to get around. They decided to go into Blaziken, obviously hoping that I would use a fire move. It probably has Flash Fire. But I had actually gone for Shadow Ball. So they Mega Evolve, which is dangerous, and they went for Protect. So I think they're just trying to scout out, seeing what I'm doing. I just went for Shadow Ball again since it went well. He gets another speed boost, so, Blaziken's doing really well here. He goes for Knockoff. That does well, but it's not going to be able to survive the next Shadow Ball, and the Mega Blaziken goes down. Mega Blaziken is something you have to take it out fast. So the Latias comes back out and is able to finish off Blacephalon with the Thunderbolt, and Bop Boop Beep is done. Blacephalon, really just an annoying Pokemon, so I'm sure he felt good getting rid of that. Chansey comes in. They went for Draco Meteor. They missed, and that would have done anything anyway. I had actually gone for Counter, which it wouldn't have worked out. Too bad he didn't have Mirror Coat. I would have rather had Mirror Coat than Thunder Wave. So I went for Protect here just to get a little more toxic damage off on the Latias. They went for Draco Meteor again. And they're definitely going down the next term. I decided to go for the Scummy Double Protect, but this is a special Latias, so it can't actually do anything to Chansey anyway, and Latias goes down. So all that's left is Tapu Koko, and I know that my Chansey can absolutely take care of this, but then he dies to the Stealth Rocks anyway, so that's game. Okay, so here's the third one. So he actually starts out with a Lapras this time. And by the way, I don't win every single one of these, just so you guys know. So Lapras comes out. I have Milotic. I went for Toxic. He goes for Thunderbolt, but Milotic is so bulky in special defense that it's going to take a lot of Thunderbolts. It's going to take probably 5. But then the second one does more. I get off the Dragon Tail. This is just a really annoying thing. Dragon Tail, Toxic, Dragon Tail, Toxic. So in comes Meloetta. So Meloetta goes for the knockoff. That's going to get rid of my leftovers. So now I'm in a slightly more vulnerable position, but I'm like, okay, well, we can get off a Toxic and see what I can do. So, and he's yelling, you go for fuck's sake. He got off the return. That's going to take off the Milotic, but, she Toxic poisoned 2 of his Pokemon. I feel really good about this. So Kamala comes in. Of course, Kamala has a really great ability. I decided to just U-turn out of there, though. So I U-turn out of there and to Jump Bluff, and they had gone for Close Combat, which is really great because Jump Bluff resists the hell out of that. And the Toxic is really starting to rack up. Their defense and special defense go down. He swaps over to Yveltal. Now, Yveltal is going to take that Acrobatics really well, but and I'm actually talking to him in the chat saying, hey, Yveltal's a really good Pokemon, so I swap in Tapu Bulu. So Tapu Bulu is going to put up the grassy terrain. They went for Toxic. I'm not super concerned with that. Toxic, it's something to expect in these battles. So they went for Dark Pulse. So I'm like, okay, he might start flinch haxing me. I had actually gone for Mega Horn. It's neutral damage because Yveltal is a flying type, but that's pretty good. It did 42% damage, just about. So I went for Roost, obviously hoping to stall me out. I went for another Mega Horn. This one does a lot more. It's 80% damage right there. So, I know that if I can get off one more Mega Horn, I don't know if he's going to go for Roost or not. Actually decides to swap over to Shaman. Shaman's a really great Pokemon. I did go for the Mega Horn, which would have been a lot of damage on Shaman if it hit, but it didn't. Oh my god. What the hell? So he goes for Air Slash, and of course Tapu Bulu is going to go just right down. There's nothing I can do about that. So Shaman is a really fast Pokemon with access to Air Slash, and Grass and Flying is a really crazy thing. I decided to go into Kamala. The return does some great damage on the Shaman. They went for Air Slash. Luckily, I'm outspeeding him. So he decides to swap over to Lapras. Now, every time you swap a Toxic, it kind of resets the Toxic counter. You're still losing, but it doesn't rack up as much. And Lapras has a lot of health. So I knew I need to take it down. I can't really just stall it out. So I just start using Return. He went for Heal Bell, so I'm like, okay, well, nobody's poisoned anymore. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Not going to survive the next Return. So he swaps into Sharpedo. Now, here's the thing. I went for return again. Now he's like, what the hell? How did you outspeed Sharpedo? Kamala's actually holding a focus scarf, and that's why I'm unable to use any other moves. And I even told him, hey, if you have a rock type or a steel type, that's a good swap in, or even better, a ghost type. But he didn't have any of that. So his last Pokemon is Meowstic F. Here's the thing. This is turning into a Kamala sweep. There's absolutely... It is a Kamala sweep, because Kamala took down the Sharpedo, and... it's just like Bop Boop Beep. Nothing's outspeeding it because of the focus focus sash. Wow, that's a completely different item. Because of the choice scarf, nothing can outspeed the Kamala, and nothing. He doesn't have any steel types, rock types, or ghost types to wall it out. So, that's pretty much game. I mean, Lapras, might have stood a chance just because it has so many hit points, but it was already low on health. So this turned into the epic Kamala sweep. The last Pokemon that he has left is Yveltal. I'm thinking it might actually survive a return, but it didn't, so that worked there. And I was actually telling the story about, hey, one time I had a team that every single one was weak to fire, and the guy had Entei and Ho-Oh, so that's random battles for you. So let's move on to the next battle. He gets a Donphan start on this one, and I start out with Tapu Lele, so that's, a nice Psychic Surge right away. I decided to just set up with Calm Mind, because I figured Donphan isn't going to be able to do too much. He's probably going to go for Earthquake, and it does do damage. Unfortunately, it's not enough for the Psyshock to take him out, so I'm like, I could swap, but what's the point? The Tapu Lele's on low health. It got the Earthquake off, so that's fine. So I sent in Swanna. I knew he was going to swap, and in comes Bisharp. Bisharp looking like that Japanese superhero. I'd gone for Scald just in case he didn't swap, and nothing really wants to go into Scald because it always has that chance of burning. I decided to set up Rain Dance because now my Scalds are just going to be a little extra damage, and he sets up a substitute. I'm kind of wondering, well, what is he going to do? So let's get rid of that right away and see what he's planning on doing. He goes for Knockoff. That's not bad damage. Gets rid of my Damp Rock, which kind of sucks, but... what can you do? Swan is in a really great position here. So the second Scald is obviously going to do a lot more damage due to the rain, and that's going to take out Bisharp, no problem. So in comes Deoxys. Deoxys speed form. I know I'm going to get outsped, and I know there's probably a Psychic-type move coming, so I swapped to Crawdons. Obviously, Psycho Boost not going to work on him, so that was a good read. Now, he swaps in Sceptile, and this is where I have a real problem. I have nothing. I know this is a Mega Sceptile. I decided to get a Swords Dance up, thinking, well, I'm Dark type, I can resist any Dragon type moves he does to me, because Mega Sceptile is Grass and Dragon type, but I'm completely walled out by Mega Sceptile. There's nothing I can do to it, because I don't have anything that has an Ice type move. So I sent in Furfrou thinking I can wall it out. Unfortunately, this is a special Mega Sceptile, and Furfrou's really high defenses, and Cotton Guard is not going to be enough to do anything here. So I'm just going to speed this up because I already kind of told you what happens. So anyway, I'd gone for the second Cotton Guard, figuring maybe, but Dragon Pulse is special. Furfrou's not very bulky, specially. Camerupt comes out, a Mega Evolve. It's not going to help me very much. Fire Blast, Sceptile is weak to fire, but then he's Dragon type and the Mega Form, so I was thinking, well, it's neutral damage. So he swapped to Lunatone. This I know I can take care of. I know I can take out a Lunatone, and probably all the rest of his team except for Mega Sceptile. You really need an Ice-type move to take it down, or something that's going to outspeed it and do neutral damage, like, Bug-type or Flying-type, which I have Swanna, but it doesn't have a Flying-type move that does damage. So they swapped Deoxys back in here. I decided to burn it with my Camerupt, so... Psycho Boost, it does okay. They got a special attack drop. I went for Ancient Power just to see if I can get an all-stats boost, and then I would be able to outspeed it on the next turn. But they went for Stealth Rocks anyway, so I take it down with the Fire Blast. So Donphan comes in to finish off the Camerupt with Earthquake. That's no problem. Bop Boop Beep, he's done. So I send in Shaman. I know that, Shaman can easily take care of Donphan. Even though it has Ice Shard, I'm not particularly worried about that. The Seed Flare is absolutely going to body him. The unfortunate thing is Shaman's holding a Life Orb, so he's not long for this world. The Mega Sceptile comes back in and takes me out with Hidden Power. I guess that could have been Hidden Power Fire, or maybe it was Hidden Power Rock. I'm not really sure. So I sent out Swanna. I get off a Roost, but this thing's just going to Giga Drain me to death, and I have nothing. It's outspeeding me. I can't Air Slash flinch it. I did have a attacking move, but I'm getting outsped. Mega Sceptile just can't do anything about it. I don't even know what his last Pokemon was. So we go into this next battle, and he has Delcatty, and I have Drapion, and this is where he's like, oh my god, my team sucks. But it wasn't that bad. Delcatty is not that bad. So he gets up a Double Edge, which does a little less than half my damage. I'd set out Toxic Spike since I figure, well, he can go for another Double Edge, and I can take it and get off a second Toxic Spikes. He actually went for Sucker Punch, so I'm like, oh, we're just keep setting up. So I get up both Toxic Spikes. In comes Toucannon. I went for Whirlwind because I want to something that's actually going to touch the spikes. Flying types don't apply to that, obviously. So Delcatty comes in. Unfortunately, it has Heal Bell, so I'm like, oh, well, that's annoying. So let's Whirlwind you again. Even if this doesn't work out too well, I can at least reveal more of the team and come up with a strategy. It's Scrafty. It has Shed Skin. So I'm like, oh my god, you either have Heal Bell or you have Shed Skin. So Scrafty sets up the taunt, so I'm not going to be able to do too much. I decide to swap over to Throw. He immediately knocks off my Flame Orb, which is fine because I didn't have Fling or anything. And out comes Toucannon. So I went for Storm Throw. Storm Throw is a really interesting move because it's a guaranteed critical unless they have some sort of ability for it not to be a guaranteed critical. But even, Toucannon resists that. So I swapped over to Armaldo, and he hides behind the Substitute. So I'm thinking this is really interesting. It didn't go the way I wanted it to in the beginning. He's healing now. The Toxic Spikes are still there. Let's throw out Stealth Rock. So at least now, Toucannon, if it decides to swap back in, is going to get bodied. So this is really interesting. He went for Beak Blast, which is not going to do the damage he needs because I hit the Substitute, not him. So it doesn't give you that extra damage. Plus Armaldo resists fire anyway, so... Well, it's neutral damage. So Incineroar comes in, gets poisoned, intimidates me, which is okay. I went for Stone Edge. It is super effective. The Intimidate probably saved Incineroar there. That sucks. So he went for Flare Blitz, and he's going to go down to the Recoil. Armaldo, like I said, he's pretty good against fire types, so that worked out pretty well. I had gone for Earthquake. There's no Pokemon on the field. So, in comes Lucario. I'm not worried about Lucario. I figure, well, this is probably a Mega. Let's find out. I swap over to Whimsicott, and he Mega Evolves and goes for Bullet Punch. So I'm thinking, okay, that's really interesting. Well, he's probably definitely going to go for another Bullet Punch since it did so well. Let me get a little bit of damage back from Leech Seed. Unfortunately, it's not enough, and I go down. But now I have it Leech Seeded, so I send in Throw. Now, of course, Lucario is weak to Fighting type. He sets up a Swords Dance, but that's not going to be it. Storm Throw, guaranteed critical, super effective, and stab. Bapu Beepy's done. So Toucannon comes in, thankfully takes that damage from the Stealth Rocks, goes behind the Substitute, so that's half his health gone immediately. I start going for Ice Punch. I figure, well, he's either going to swap because I have Ice Punch, or he's going to continually use Substitute and Roost. So he decides to swap, and in comes Kingler. Kingler can have some pretty interesting things, so I decided to see what it does. Just let's use Bulk Up. Let's see what Kingler can do. It has Liquidation. Liquidation's a pretty powerful stab move, but I'm not super worried about it. If that's what he's going for, I knock off his Life Orb. So I know now that I can take the next Liquidation, no problem, because it's going to do less damage without that Life Orb. So, went from, pretty much almost 40% damage to like 28% damage. So the next Storm Throw is going to take him down. So Delcatty comes in. It gets poisoned. I know it has Heal Bell, but I'm wondering, is he going to bother going for it? Luckily for him, he didn't. He just went for Double Edge to immediately take down Throw. But I'm pretty happy with that because, the poison will rack up a little bit, and he gets that recoil damage. So I sent in Tyranitar because it resists normal types, and I immediately Mega Evolve. He went for Heal Bell. That's fine. I figured he would do that, so this was pretty much a free crunch. He didn't get to do anything, because I was kind of worried that it might have close combat, but I figured he's probably going to go for Heal Bell instead of any kind of attacking move, so that worked out. So Scrafty comes in. He gets poisoned. The Shed Skin doesn't proc, so I had gone for Earthquake. He goes for Dragon Dance, so I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. Obviously, he's hoping to take me out in like one big shot, which is possible with Tyranitar, and he does have Drain Punch. I wanted to see what it had. That's why I kept Tyranitar in there. So I'm like, okay, well, he's got 2 more Pokemon. I have 1 more Pokemon. The Shed Skin finally procs, so he's no longer poisoned, but I'm not super worried about this. I send Drapion in. So he went for another Dragon Dance. His attack and speed are doubled now. They're up by 2 stages. I go for Whirlwind to swap into 2 Cannon to get that damage from the Stealth Rock. So my plan is to just continually use Whirlwind until the Drapion goes down. But then I decide, you know what, I could probably take it out with Poison Jab, but then he lives on 1% health. I totally shouldn't have done that. So that was a mistake on my part. I can't believe he lived like that. So I go for Taunt, so he can't Roost anymore, at least not for the next few turns. So there's that. And he had gone for Roost, so that was a good move there. I went for Poison Jab. I figure, I'm just going to keep doing it. He goes for Rock Blast. Thankfully, Drampion's pretty bulky in attack, so I figure I could probably hit this, but wow, there was a crit in there, and that this is definitely a skilling 2 Cannon. Either that or he got kind of lucky. So I know that I'm not going to be able to survive the next Rock Blast, and I'm not going to be able to take him out. So I just get that little bit of damage. I was hoping to poison him, but it just didn't happen. So I have Armaldo and one other Pokemon, which is Solgaleo. I was saving him for last. I went for Stone Edge. Obviously, that has a low chance of hitting, but a high chance of critical, and I managed to take him out. So Scrafty comes in, gets poisoned. I figured, well, eventually it's not going to be poisoned, so let's just take it out quickly. Unfortunately, Stone misses, and he goes for Dragon Dance. So I'm like, great, now he's setting up on me. So actually, this really could go either way at this point. So I go for the next Stone Edge. It does, like, no damage at all. I'm like, crap, Scrafty's bulky as fuck. So I need to make something happen here, because eventually, the Toxic is starting to rack up, but eventually what's going to happen is he's going to get that shed skin. So he's continually going for Dragon Dance. He gets the shed skin, so I'm like, crap. I swapped in Armaldo because I figured at least I could sack him off if I need to, because Solgaleo was choiced into Stone Edge. I couldn't do anything else. So of course he takes him down, and now I have an option of using a different move with Solgaleo. So I swap Solgaleo back in. He goes for Drain Punch. It takes off more than half my health. It's really going to come down to Flare Blitz. It's not enough. So clearly I just am unable to do anything here. The second Drain Punch is going to take me down. So bop boop beep, I'm done. And Zane886 he's starting to get better at the game, if you guys notice. So let's move on to the next one. He gets Mamoswine as a start, and I get Xerneas. So okay, this is really interesting. So I went for Close Combat. That does pretty good damage. Of course, the defense and special defense go down. He actually starts setting up Stealth Rock, so I'm like, oh, he's not going to attack. I'm just going to do Close Combat again, and Mamoswine goes down. I'm not too worried about Stealth Rocks, even though I pretty much have to swap at this point. But then again, my defense and my special defense are so low that anything's going to take me out. Stack Attack, it comes in. This thing's weak to fighting. What the hell? So, of course, I went for the Close Combat. Unfortunately, it's not enough to take it down. It's very bulky in defense. He goes for Earthquake. I know I can't take another one, so I'm like, all right, boom, there we go. I'm down to 1/3 of my defense and special defense. A slight breeze can take Xerneas down now, but he did a great job. Meganium comes in. This thing's a real problem. I sent Avila because the Trick Room's still up, and I know I can outspeed Meganium. He went for Giga Drain there, so it's like, okay, that's fine. He sends in Typhlosion, but I know I'm going to go first. So I had gone for Avalanche. That would have bodied Meganium. Typhlosion takes it a lot better. But the Trick Room's up for one more turn, so I get off an Earthquake. Unfortunately, this is a very fat Typhlosion. Thankfully, he went for Eruption, and he's like, what the hell? How come it did like nothing to an Ice type? And I had to explain how Eruption's damage is based on how many hit points you have. And he tried to make me swap it, saying, oh, good thing I didn't do it again, but I don't believe anything anybody says in the chat. So I'm able to take him down with another Earthquake. So in comes Vivillon, and I'm like, okay, so he puts me to sleep. So this is really interesting. So I decided to just stay in and see if I could wake up quickly, because I don't think he can really do anything to me physically. But then I said, all right, let's see if he knows this. So I swap over to Dragonite, thinking, is he going to try to put my Dragonite to sleep again? Maybe he doesn't know. And I even said I'd recommend not doing Sleep Powder again. What's he do Sleep Powder? Of course you can't. The Sleep Claws mod is in effect, so I get the Fire Punch off. Vivillon takes that pretty well, but the Extreme Speed comes in. I'm like, oh man, that really should have taken him out. Thankfully he went for Bug Buzz. Dragonite shrugs that off pretty well, no big deal. He swaps in Mesprit. I had gone for another Extreme Speed to hopefully take out the Vivillon, but that's not going to happen, obviously, because he swapped. So he went for Psychic. Dragonite's looking pretty ragged here. I went for Roost. But I get back, some health, but I'm thinking if he just keeps using Psychic and I keep using Roost, that's going to get really annoying. So I sent in my Rabombi. So Rabombi obviously takes the Psychic pretty badly, especially after getting hit by the Stealth Rocks, but I know I can get off at least one hit. Bug Buzz is super effective. Unfortunately, it doesn't kill, but I do get that special defense drop, which is really what I was looking for. So the second Psychic is going to take him down. Gunny's been losing his mind all day. I don't know what his problem is, why he's barking so much. So I sent Xerneas back in just to get the Moonblast off because I knew I can outspeed it. Mesprit goes down. So the Vivillon, I'm not worried about. The Meganium, I'm a little worried about, but I have 5 Pokemon. I have Hidden Power, I believe Ice. It does not much. They decide to start Dragon Tailing because of the Stealth Rocks. It makes a lot of sense, but the problem is Dragon Tail doesn't work on Xerneas. It is a Fairy type, so I got off another Hidden Power. So now he's going for Giga Drain. He's not getting a lot of health back, but he's getting some health back, and he's got his leftovers still, so I'm like, alright, well, let's do Moonblast. Moonblast does pretty good damage, but he has Synthesis, so I'm like, oh, we got a problem here. I already knew that Meganium was a problem, but this is a real problem because it can just keep Giga Draining, getting little bits of health back, and when I get it that low, he can just Synthesis, so I really have to figure out how to kill this thing. So I sent in Hitmontop. Hitmontop seems like an odd choice, but bear with me on this. So he went for Synthesis just to get his health back. Fortunately, he's down with the attack a little. I use Rapid Spin to get rid of the Stealth Rocks. That's the first part of my plan here. I just need to get rid of those. So he goes for Giga Drain. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You can do that. I went for Toxic. So I figured this thing, I know it's whole set. It doesn't have Aromatherapy or any way to heal Toxic, and now we play Stalling. So I went for Sucker Punch, figuring he'd go for Giga Drain, but he does have Aromatherapy. I thought I knew all his moves, but I didn't, so I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, I can do this all day, and I'm like, yeah, alright, we'll see. So I sent in Mesprit, so now I have a new plan. So he goes for Dragon Tail. That brings in Avalugg. Avalugg can handle this Meganium, but it's sleeping. Luckily, I survived the Giga Drain, and then I wake up. Boom comes the Avalanche. That's going to do almost all the damage I need. So now I'm like, oh my god. Here's the problem, though. I don't have any priority moves. So the Giga Drain's going to be able to take me down. So I have a plan. I send in my Mesprit. So here's what we're going to do. He goes for Synthesis because of course he does, but I'm figuring I can get a Signal Beam off on him. That's a lot of damage, and maybe I can confuse him. Unfortunately, I don't get the Confuse, but it's about the damage that he would get back from Synthesis. So I set up a Calm Mind, figuring, all right, Mesprit takes Giga Drain really well. Maybe I can just get up 1 or 2 Calm Minds, and maybe a few more, and just do this, right? And he's like, I don't know why you're doing this. I'm just going to Dragon Tail you. Well, he Dragon Tailed me instead of healing. And I'm figuring either Dragonite or Hitmontop is going to be able to take care of this. I go for Extreme Speed. Unfortunately, Meganium's super fat. He goes for Dragon Tail again. I'm like, why aren't you healing, is what I'm thinking. In comes Hitmontop. He gets the second Intimidate off. So I'm like, aha, now your attack is at half. So I gone for Sucker Punch. I thought he would attack, but he was for Synthesis. So I'm like, okay, here it comes. So it's taken a while for my plan to come together, but we're making it happen. So now I put the Toxic on him. He goes for Dragon Tail. That's fine. Here's the thing. Now when he gets low in health, because each of these Pokemon, none of them can take the Meganium out in one shot, but they can all do damage to it. And he can't really do much damage to me. So I hit him with the Signal Beam. Unfortunately, don't get the Confuse. Now he has to choose. Is he going to go for Synthesis to heal himself, or is he going to go for Aromatherapy? If he goes for Synthesis, the Toxic's going to rack up. If he goes for Aromatherapy, I'm going to kill him. Especially there, I got a Signal Beam critical hit there. So, Meganium is pretty much done for at this point. The Toxic is really starting to rack up. He can't bother to use Aromatherapy because then I'm just going to kill him. So I finally take that stupid Salad Dragon down. The last Pokemon is Vivillon. And the one thing that you guys are missing out on is all the talking in the chat and all the... Because I'm actually giving him, like I said, a lot of tips on how to play, which is why you see him continually get better. So Vivillon goes down to Psyshock. So here's the next one. So he actually starts off with the Tornadus Therian form in this, and I have Chatot. And it's like, okay, let me just get the hell out of here. I decide to U-turn the hell out of there, and I bring in Bisharp because I'm like, Chatat's not going to do it here. So he had gone for Heat Wave. Thankfully, he missed the Heat Wave. That's an interesting set there. Unfortunately, he has Superpower. I did not think that this Tornadus Therian form would have Superpower. That's going to take Bisharp down easily. So I sent in Marowak because I figure, well, maybe he doesn't know that the Alolan Marowak is Ghost type, and I was right. He went for Superpower again. So I went for Will-O-Wisp. Unfortunately, it didn't hit. He goes for Heat Wave. It's neutral damage, and Marowak is pretty bulky in special defense, so I get off Flame Charge there. I figure there's no sense at this point in trying to use Will-O-Wisp. So he sends in Purugly. I go for another Flame Charge. The thing about Flame Charge is even if it does like no damage like it did right there, you get that speed boost, so now my speed is doubled. Unfortunately, it gets off the knockoff. It's really a lot of damage. So I'm like, alright, one last chance to do something here. I had gotten off the Will-O-Wisp, so I have one more attack in me. Unfortunately, I am outsped there, so I get knocked off there. So Will-O-Wisp has pretty much gimped the Purugly since it is physical. I sent in Dragalja. So he goes for Return. It's not going to do a lot. It would have done a lot, but he's burned. I went for the Focus Mist. That's easily going to take Purugly down, so Bop Boop Beep Beep's done. So, not the greatest start for me, but then again, I started with Chatot, so, He sends in Beartick, and I'm like, oh, okay, and he immediately sets up with Swords Dance. Focus Mist is just going to take him down to red health. I figure, well, let's swap in Kyurem, see what this Beartick has. It's probably going to use an Ice move. Icicle Crash does a lot of damage. I mean, obviously Kyurem is Dragon type. This is Kyurem Black, by the way. But it's also Ice type, so it's neutral damage. I do manage to survive it. He swaps over to Surpluff. Probably thinking I was going to use a Dragon type move, but I actually went for Ice Beam. So, that actually worked out pretty well, and I managed to get off a Roost. So he goes for Calm Mind, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see if I can, just freeze him or something to just stop this thing. Well, actually, I decided to swap over to Dragalja. So I swap over to Dragalja. He goes behind the Substitute and eats the Citrus Berry. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. He goes for Dazzling Gleam. He's starting to learn about the relationship between Fairy types and Dragon types. Unfortunately for him, Dragalja is also Poison type, so it's not as much damage. I had gone for Sludge Wave. He swapped into Beartick. That's just sacking off the Beartick pretty much. He brings in Tornadus. So I'm like, alright, let's swap over to Kyurem Black. So Kyurem Black, like I said, he was down to like no health, but that Roost really helped. He went for Air Slash. I'm like, okay, alright, that did a lot more damage than I was hoping for. Air Slash is pretty powerful. He goes for Super Power. That's going to take me down. But I get the attack and the defense drop there, which is, super important when somebody's using Super Power. So I sent in Regigigas. Regigigas is a Pokemon that you absolutely have to kill him quickly. He goes for Taunt, which is kind of smart because Regigigas has a lot of things like Substitute and whatnot, usually, but not this particular one. It only had like attacking moves. So I go for Knockoff. That's going to kill him. He sends in the Slurpuff. So I'm like, okay, this is fine. I go for Knockoff just to see what I can, chip away at him. I was like, oh, wait, he ate his berry. So he goes for another Calm Mind. I went for Return. It's okay damage. Regigigas has been in for like a while, and he's no longer taunted. He goes for Dazzling Gleam. It's not enough. So Regigigas has this ability, Slow Start. I had Thunder Wave. Slow Start halves his speed and his physical attack for 5 turns. So, I did have... Okay, so that's what it is. So the taunt's over. I did have Substitute. I go behind it. I have leftovers. I know I'm slowly going to get it back. And now Slow Start is over, so his attack is sky high, his speed is sky high, and that's pretty much game because Slurpuff can't handle Regigigas without the Slow Start. So in comes Maractus. I went for Knockoff. That does pretty good damage, gets rid of the leftovers. He goes for Leech Seed. I'm behind the Substitute. I had to tell him, it only works if you're not behind a Substitute. So I went for Return, and that's absolutely going to body Maractus. So his last Pokemon... I'm sorry, I'm also laughing because of the stuff we're saying in the chat. His last Pokemon is Tapu Fini, which is a great Pokemon, but it's pretty much game at this point. I went to Knockoff just to get rid of whatever item it was, which was leftovers, and he goes behind a Substitute. I'm not quite seeing the point of that because, like, what? So I just get rid of it with Return. I'm like, well, he can keep doing that to just go down slower, or he could attack. So Moonblast doesn't do quite enough to take down my Substitute, and I'm going to get off the next Return, and that's going to be game. So there you go. Okay, so in the next battle, he starts out with Wormadam, and I start out with Relicanth, and I'm like, oh, damn. So I decided to try to go for Waterfall to see if I can flinch hacks him. I don't get the flinch. He gets Toxic off. I'm thinking, Waterfall doesn't have a huge flinch chance, but it's really the only option I have here, so I just decided to try it. He starts setting up Stealth Rock, so I'm like, okay. Wormadam also has Protect more often than not, so I'm figuring that might come. So here comes Protect. I'm like, okay, well, now we know that he has Protect. So, yeah, every other turn I'm going to have to figure something out, especially since he's getting a little health back from leftovers, and eventually the Toxic's going to rack up. So I went for Head Smash. It's not quite enough. And then he sends out Stealth Rocks again, and he's like, what the hell? Well, I thought you can do it up to like 4 times. I'm like, nope, Stealth Rocks is once, Spikes is 3 times, and Toxic Spikes is 2 times. So I decided to swap over to Necrozma. He goes for Protect. That's why I swapped, because I figured he'd go for Protect there. Unfortunately, that didn't work because I swapped. So I Ultra Burst into Ultra Necrozma. He goes for another Protect, which is fine. I'd gone for Knockoff. That would have killed him, but, whatever. He gets a little bit of health back. But Ultra Necrozma's no joke. He goes for the double Protect. Not going to work. And the Knockoff's going to kill the Wormadam Bapu Beep. He's done. He's donesies. So in comes Venusaur. I figure it's probably a Mega, so I know Fire moves and Ice moves are not really going to have a lot of effect. I decided to just set up a Swords Dance. He goes for Sleep Powder and misses. So I'm like, well, he's definitely going to do Sleep Powder again. So I get off the Earthquake, which does pretty good damage. Venusaur's fat. Even without, thick fat, thick fat only affects Fire and Ice. So he sends in Curum. I'm not seeing the need to swap out, but I really should have, because he goes for Draco Meteor. I thought I could take like one Draco Meteor, but unfortunately not. So Bapu Beep. So I sent in Lunala. Lunala's just another great legendary. Draco Meteor doesn't do a whole lot of damage. I think he's starting to see that it has diminishing returns. He's down to a third of his special attack, and I figure it probably is a special cure. So he swaps out to Venusaur, which makes a lot of sense. I went for Moongeist Beam, and that's going to take him down. So that's no problem. I doubt he had anything that really wanted to swap into Moongeist Beam. He's asking me a lot of questions about Lunala. So in comes Trump Shoes. Trump Shoes here, I'm a little triggered because I got swept by a Trump Shoes not too long ago. He gets the crunch off. That's absolutely going to body Lunala. Trump here is just a beast. He's hard to deal with. I sent in Luxray. He swaps over to Rhyperior, probably thinking that there was an electric type move going, but actually I went for Superpower because I really wanted to kill the Trump Shoes there. Obviously Rhyperior takes that a little better because it's just bulky as hell. I got burned, so I decided to go for Facade, but obviously, I don't know. I probably should have done Facade because Rhyperior resists it, and Bapu Beepy's done to that Earthquake. So I sent in Crocodile. He goes. I go for Earthquake. It doesn't quite take out right. Rhyperior is just a beast. I'm starting to think this thing might have like an Assault Vest or something. He goes for Rock Polish. The next Earthquake's going to take him down. I'm thinking that thing definitely had. But then he went for Rock Polish, so it couldn't have been an Assault Vest. So I don't know what he was holding. So in comes Curum. He goes for Focus Miss. Thankfully it misses, because that probably would have bodied Crocodile. I go for Earthquake. Not quite enough. I think, well, here comes another Focus Miss. Thankfully it misses again. I'm taking a huge risk staying in, because Focus Blast is going to body Crocodile. He misses 3 times in a row, and it's like, I told him that's why we call it Focus Miss, and the next Earthquake's going to take down Curum. So that was a terrible matchup that I managed to win there, just out of sheer luck. So Reuniclus comes in. In case you can't tell, I'm choiced into Earthquake. He sets up the Trick Room, and then goes for Recover, which is smart. Obviously, I'm going to do Earthquake again, because I can't do anything else. So you're in for Shadow Ball. Obviously, Dark type, not going to work too well. So the next Earthquake is going to take him down to red health. I'm thinking, hey, this ain't going so bad. He goes for Psyshock. Come on, man, I'm Dark type. So the next Earthquake is going to take him down. Of course, Dark types are completely immune to any kind of Psychic type. So the last Pokemon is the Trump Shoes, which is easily going to take me down with Return. Thankfully, I still have Relicanth and one other Pokemon to take this stupid orange bastard down. The last Pokemon that I have is Nihilego with the Air Balloon. I figured I'd send him out since he's Rock type and he might take a return. Thankfully, I outsped him, and Sludge Wave absolutely bodies the Trump Shoes. So that's game. So here's the next one. He sends out Fearow. I'm thinking, okay, a lot of people poo-poo Fearow, but he's not that bad. Zip Strike is my start. I decided to Volt Switch because I knew I would outspeed him, and I swap over to Giratina. So he goes for Drill Run. Thankfully, I figured he would go for that because it's a common move for Fearow to have. Giratina, of course, has Levitate. So in comes Gigalith. I'd gone for Dragon Tail anyway. So in comes Audino, which I figured, well, it's probably Mega Audino. Let's see what he can do. It is a fairy type. So I wanted to see if it would Mega Evolve. I mean, it's a normal type until it Mega Evolves, and it's a normal and fairy. So I threw the Toxic on it. But there's not too much else that Giratina can do to it. It can't do any Ghost type moves because it's normal type, and it can't do any Dragon type moves because it's fairy type. So I decided to just Toxic and swap. So he goes for Wish. I had swapped to Cobalion. So I'm like, well, is he just going to get back that little bit of health, or is he going to try to heal somebody else? So I went for Iron Head. Maybe I can flinch him. He goes for Fire Blast. It does a lot of damage, and he's going to get his health back, which is actually fine with me because it's just stalling and getting the toxic damage to rack up a little more. So I went for another Iron Head, really just hoping for that flinch. Unfortunately, I don't get it. And interestingly, he went for Hyper Voice, which makes me think he probably thought I was going to swap on that turn. But the Mega Audino goes down to Toxic, so Cobalion really did his job, but I really needed that flinch. So I sent Giratina back in. He has Gigalith out. So I'm like, okay, let's put Toxic on this too. So I Toxic the Gigalith. He goes for Stealth Rocks, which is really fine since I don't really have a lot of need to swap in this battle so far. So I go for Earthquake. Gigalith is pretty bulky in physical defense. He goes for Stone Miss. He misses. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Let's even then, if it hits, Giratina is pretty much a wall. I went for Earthquake. I got a lot more damage that time, and that's able to take him out. So that's interesting. So he goes Stone Miss. I said Miss Edge. He said Miss. It was a whole thing. So in comes Aegis Slash, and I'm like, oh man. Here's the good news is he probably doesn't know how to fully utilize Aegis Slash. The bad news is Aegis Slash is so good that even in the hands of the most inexperienced player, it's a beast of a Pokemon. It Ghost type and Steel type. It has so many resistances. It has a double resistance to Bug. It has a bunch of immunities. It's immune to Fighting type. It's immune, which would normally be a weakness for Steel type. It's immune to Normal type, and it's immune to Poison type. And has so many resistances. So I'm just trying to see if I can get a Belly Drum off with my Azumarill. Unfortunately, that Iron Head just bodies the hell out of it, and I couldn't get the Belly Drum off. So I sent in Zebstrika. So Zebstrika takes the Iron Head pretty badly, I might add. He goes into Shield form. Obviously, he's using King Shield. And the reason I wanted to try with Zebstrika is because it did have Overheat, which probably can at least take him down to low health, which it does manage to do. Overheat has severely diminishing returns, but I'm figuring he's probably going to go for King Shield, but actually he went for Sacred Sword instead, so I'm like, oh snap, this thing's walled me out. So I sent Cherim in thinking, alright, well he's probably going to, change his stance and go into King Shield, which he does, so that worked out well. I'd gone for Hidden Power just in case he didn't, but I believe this is Hidden Power Fire, which, Aegis Slash is technically weak to fire, but it doesn't do a lot, Hidden Power, but luckily I was able to take him down. So in comes Fearow. Now I'm breathing a huge sigh of relief. I swap over to Nihilego, because I figure here comes a Drill Run, and I have an Air Balloon. So actually he went for Drill Peck, which is going to pop my balloon, but I resisted anyway, so he sends in Meowetta. I'm surprised he didn't stay in to try to do Drill Run. I had gone for Stealth Rocks. So I go for Sludge Wave. I don't get a poison, and I get a surprisingly very little damage. So I'm like, okay, this Meowetta is obviously very bulky. So I went for Acid Spray to reduce that bulk a little bit, get that special defense down. Unfortunately, they get me with the Psyshock, so that's game for him. So I sent back in Cherim. So I have the Cherim, the Azumarill, and the Giratina. I'm in a pretty good position here because I know he has Fearow and Meowetta, which I know I can handle. The only wild card is that other Pokemon. So I get a Dazzling Gleam off, but I go down to Psyshock. So I'm like, this Meowetta is a real problem, but I know Giratina is what I can do here. So he goes for Calm Mind. I'm like, okay, well, that negates what I did before. I get the Toxic off. So I'm like, all right, well, I have Stealth Rocks up. I could start just using Dragon Tail, or I can use Ghost-type moves. Unfortunately, he gets the Psyshock off, and it does a lot more damage than I expected. So that's the Giratina down. So this Meowetta has pretty much walled me out completely. My last Pokemon is Azumarill. There is no way I can do anything. I'm telling him, you totally won. He goes for the Hyper Voice, and that's game. So, by the way, I'm not showing every single battle. There were a couple that were complete blowouts that were not that interesting. So he starts out with Silvally here. I have Darkrai. I immediately go for Focus Miss, and thankfully it actually hits. He went for U-Turn, which is, just a really smart move, and he puts in Persian, so I'm like, okay, there you go. So I swapped over to Ferrothorn, probably thinking that he was going to go for a physical move that would make contact. I actually thought it would be Fake Out, but it was Return. So obviously he takes a lot of damage there from the Rocky Helmet and from the Rocky Helmet, and just as the ability that Ferrothorn has. He goes for another knockoff. That's going to get rid of my Rocky Helmet, but he still takes damage from it, even though he knocked it off. He took damage from it and from my ability, and my knockoff is going to get rid of him. So Ferrothorn did a really great job there. So in comes Celesteela. It goes for Fire Blast. There's nothing I can do to that. Fire Blast, it is a Steel and Grass type, so, Bapu Beepy's done. So I sent Palkia in. Palkia is really great. I go for my own Fire Blast. Unfortunately, Celesteela is only single weak instead of double weak to fire, so it doesn't do quite the damage, but he decides not to stay in. He decides to swap the Poliwrath into it. I don't mind because I get the burn, so that's really cool, and Poliwrath is just almost always physical. I don't think I've ever seen, at least not on here, I've never seen a special Poliwrath. So I start going for Spatial Rend. He's got Ice Beam. It's not going to do enough because Palkia is part Ice type, so it's only neutral damage, and Palkia is incredibly bulky. So the next Spatial Rend is going to take him down. So in comes Silvally again. I'm thinking, interesting. He goes for multi-attack. That was a pretty good move, pretty smart move. But the Fire Blast is going to body him. So Palkia is getting a little low on health, but boy has he put in work. He's really done a great job. So in comes Gligar. I use Hydro Pump. I can't believe it, but he lived on 1% health. He gets the Toxic off, so Gligar really did his job there. He knows that's worth it. The Spatial Rend's going to take him down. I went for that because it was a guaranteed hit instead of Hydro Pump, which can easily miss. So I know I'm going down on this next turn. He brings in Passimian. I'm like, all right, just do it. Just get it over with so I can get my clean swap in. He goes for Knockoff. And as you can see, I was running the Assault Vest on that. So Articuno comes in. Articuno's not a great Pokemon, but boy, is it cool looking. He goes into Celesteela. I actually wanted to go up against the Celesteela, so I went for Hurricane. It doesn't work. They goes for Fire Blast. He misses. So I could just continue to do Freeze Dry. It's not a lot of damage, but Freeze Dry is never not effective, basically. It could be not effective, but Celesteela is part Flying type, so it's doing okay. So unfortunately, it survives that last Freeze Dry. I'm like, oh crap. And he finally hits me with Fire Blast, and he burns me. But I'm like, okay, well, this Articuno has done a lot better than you normally can do with Articuno. I go for one more Freeze Dry just to chip him out. And I know the last Pokemon is Passimian. Passimian is probably going to hit me pretty hard with whatever, but, there's no sense in, swapping. He actually goes for Iron Head. Obviously, that's Bapu Beepy's done. So I sent in Tropius. Tropius is another Pokemon. It's just terrible, but I like him. I like Articuno and Tropius, even though they're bad. So Air Slash does a lot of damage. Even though I'm not outspeeding him, I actually get flinched by Iron Head. I'm like, what is life even? We're both going for flinching moves. He takes me down to my Citrus Berry. It's like, whatever. But I got flinched there. And I got the Harvest off. So I know I can pretty much, do that a few more times. He takes me down to the Citrus Berry again. And I get flinched again. So it's like, oh, what is life even? And of course I get the Harvest off. So I can do this all day until I don't get flinched. And, Tropius, if you can't take him down quickly, you can't take him down. So finally I don't get flinched. I get the Air Slash off. Bapu Beep, that's done. So, we don't have many left. So he has Rayquaza and I have Shaman. And you would think that, wow, this is terrible for me. But hey, not that bad. I decide to send off Leech Seed. He goes for Dragon Dance. So I'm like, okay, there's not much Shaman can actually do to Rayquaza, but I'm happy to have a Shaman. So I wanted to see what he would do. He goes for Draco Meteor. I'm like, okay, he has Draco Meteor. I decide to see if I could outspeed him. I can outspeed him. Leech Seed, of course, is priority, so I had to do a move to see if I could outspeed him. So he goes into Heatmore. I had gone for Air Slash again. Obviously, that does okay damage, but I don't want to stay into Heatmore. Or do I? So I go for air sled. I'm really trying to flinch hacks him. He gets the fireball. I don't get the flinch hacks. I was really trying to do that, but I go down there. Shaman's really cool, but he didn't do that bad. So I sent in Diane. See, this is obviously going to be a mega, because of course it is. So I went for Side Shock. It doesn't quite take out Heatmore. He goes for Focus Miss. He actually hits me. That is super effective. Well, it's kind of super effective. He goes for Sucker Punch. It's not going to do what he needs to do. And he goes down to his own life orb. So Babu Beepy's done. I'd gone for Moonblast, but that's kind of like whatever. So in comes Sceptile, and I'm like, ah, crap. It's going to be a Mega Sceptile. I sent in Eradicate just in case he leads off with a Dragon type move. I can resist it. He actually started off with Leaf Blade, which is kind of like whatever. Alolan Eradicate is, of course, Dark type. That's why I swapped into him. I had gone for Swords Dance. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. The next Leaf Blade is a little more damage, and Bop Boop Beepy's done. So I sent in Lugia. I figure if anything can take down Mega Sceptile on my team, it's my Lugia. So he goes behind. I wanted to get Toxic off on him so bad. He went behind a substitute. So I'm like, ah, crap. He starts going for Dragon Pulse. Lugia is just so bulky. So I'm like, all right, well, Aeroblast. If I can actually get an Aeroblast off on him, it is super effective on Sceptile. Unfortunately, he swaps into Nidoking. So I'm like, all right, well, that takes the Aeroblast a lot better than Mecha Sceptile would. But still, not bad damage. He goes for Ice Beam. It is super effective, but I actually took it really well. So I went for Whirlwind to see if I can get the Mega Sceptile back, and I get Rayquaza. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. I can deal with that. So at least I know he's not a Mega, right? So I go for Aeroblast. It does pretty good damage. I'm like, let's see what this thing's going to do. He goes for Dragon Dance. I'm like, bro, why are you setting up? You're not at full health. I'm outspeeding you. So actually, he outspeeds me now because he used Dragon Dance, but it was just really interesting. So I just decided to throw the Toxic on him. You guys know what's going to happen here, right? You guys know what's going to happen. So I swap over to Mega Diancie. He goes for Dragon Claw. I figured he was going to do that. That's why. She is part Fairy type, so that's not going to do it. So he decides to swap into Nidoking. So I'm like, okay, well, Nidoking is going to take the Moonblast a hell of a lot better. And I'm thinking if I can get him, if I can keep him out, her out, Diancie out, I can get the Mega Sceptile. Moonblast is going to work on it. So in comes the Mega Sceptile. I'm like, please let me get this Moonblast off. Unfortunately, Leaf Blade it's a rock type. There wasn't anything I could do. So I send in Dusknoir. Obviously, it has the Septolite, no duh. I had gone for Will-O-Wisp. Unfortunately, he hid behind the sub again. I'm like, oh my god, I'm never going to get rid of this thing. So I sent in Landorus. The Intimidate isn't going to work because he's behind a sub. He goes for Leaf Blade, which is about what I figured. Landorus takes that a lot better. It's part flying type. He goes for another Leaf Blade. I mean, this is the thing. Mecha Sceptile is like almost unstoppable. I finally get rid of the sub with that Earthquake. I figure he's probably not going to go for another sub now because he's only in half health. He goes for the next Leaf Blade, and I just barely live it. And the Stone Miss hits, and that stupid Christmas tree looking motherfucker finally goes down. So, wow. So in comes Rayquaza. I'm not super worried about Rayquaza. He goes for Extreme Speed, so at least now I know he has it. And that's going to take down Landorus, but I know I can take down this Rayquaza with either Lugia or Dusknoir. The problem is he has two more Pokemon, so I went for Shadow Sneak there, just to, chip him out a little bit. He goes for Dragon Dance, and I'm thinking, okay, well, even with the leftovers, he gets hit by the Toxic. I think the next Shadow Sneak's going to take him out, and it does, so Rayquaza goes down. So I have two more Pokemon to worry about, and he sends in Abomasnow, so I'm like, okay, really interesting. It kind of sucks that I don't have anything with Fire-type moves at this point. Well, except for Will-O-Wisp, obviously, but that barely counts, because it's not an attacking move. Unfortunately, he went behind the substitute. I'm like, why does every Pokemon on your team seem to have friggin' substitute? So, Shadow Sneak doesn't quite fade the sub. Earthquake, I take it pretty well, but I'm like, this can't go on. This just can't go on. So I'm like, let's get rid of this sub. I'm either going to force him to do another sub or an attacking move. He has Giga Drain, so at least now I know what he's going to do for a grass-type move. So I'm like, okay. I know what's going to happen now. So he goes behind the substitute again. So I'm like, all right. I had gone for Pain Split there because I didn't think he would go for the substitute. Unfortunately for me, he did. So it's like, all right, he's definitely learning how to play this game. He gets the next Giga Drain off, so I'm like, crap. He's just going to continually be able to do Giga Drain But I'm like, see, what I'm planning on doing here is just doing as much as I can with this Dusknoir. But I realize I can't do much, so I send in Lugia. So Lugia, resists Giga Drain, and he, obviously can't use Earthquake on me. So that's the good thing. Unfortunately, he has Ice Shard. I did not know that. So that just really sucks. I mean, I knew he would have an Ice-type move, but I didn't think it would be a priority move, so that just really sucks. So I couldn't even get rid of the sub. So I go for Shadow Sneak there. I know I'm going down here. There's nothing I can do to this Obama Snow, and Giga Drain gets me. So like I said, he's starting to get a lot better at the game. So I have, how many more? Oh, this is the last one. Okay, finally. So he starts out with Mesprit. I start out with Whale Lord. So this is a really cool battle. This is our last battle that I'm showing anyway. So he hit off with Shy Shock. I got off a Hydro Pump. It's pretty good damage. I don't know if I'm going to be able to repeat that because Hydro Pump has pretty low accuracy, and he swaps over to Roserade. I did miss the second Hydro Pump, but it probably wouldn't have hurt Roserade very well anyway, so I sent in the Caesar. So he goes for Giga Drain, because I kind of figured here comes a grass move. That's why I swapped in Caesar. And Caesar is a Mega Caesar, of course, and of course I'm going to get bodied by this Hidden Power. I'm like, crap, that had to have been Hidden Power Fire. That really sucks, because I was going to get X-Scissor off or something. But I have this Electivire. This Electivire is a beast. It has Flamethrower. Not the greatest fire move, but, enough to really hurt Roserade. He gets a Sludge Bomb off that does a lot of damage, but decides to swap into Rayquaza. I'm like, wow, you have another Rayquaza? Oh my god, I had gone for Ice Punch instead of, just in case he swapped, and can you believe he swapped into Rayquaza, so that absolutely gets bodied. And then he sends in Relicanth. I decide, I'm out of here, Volt Switch, and I swap into Passimian. He went for Earthquake. Passimian takes that really well, so I'm like, okay, I wonder if he's going to stay in here. He decides not to, and he swaps into Mesprit, which is pretty smart because I had gone for Close Combat. But even though it took it really well and gives me the defense and special defense drop, this Mesprit's pretty much on its last legs. So I bring in Tallboy, the Alolan Executor. He goes for Psyshock, which is about what I figured. Executor's going to take that a lot better than anybody else on my team. He goes for Healing Wish and Faints, which of course, Healing Wish kills your current Pokemon and heals up whoever you swap in, and Roserade gets fully healed, so that's fine. Obviously, he wants to do Sludge Bomb, and that's going to take me out, so that's fine. Alolan Executor isn't, the greatest Pokemon out there. So I sent an Electivire. I went for Cross Chop because I thought he might swap to Relicanth, but he didn't. So he's learning. You see how he's learning? He gets me with the Sludge Bomb there. So I'm so proud of Zane886 right now. So I sent in Weezing. Weezing is pretty much the undoing of his whole team. He sends in the Absol. This is going to be a Mega Absol. Fire Blast does pretty good damage there, but he's obviously going to Mega Evolve into the My Chemical Romance version of Absol. I went for Protect just to see what is he going to lead off with, but he actually led off with Swords Dance, so that's good for him, really. So he went for Sucker Punch, which is really going to do a lot of damage, but I went for Sludge Bomb, which absolutely is just not able to... Sludge Bomb is just such a powerful move. Unless you're Steel type or Poison type, it's going to do ridiculous amounts of damage. In comes Relicanth, Sludge Bomb. It resists it because it is Rock type, but I get the Poison off. Can you believe it? He went for Head Smash and missed. Oh man, so that kind of sucks for him because that Head Smash might have killed Weezing there. So obviously I'm going to go for Protect here just to avoid the Head Smash, and he's going to go down to Poison damage. So that's, well actually, wait, does he? Yeah, he does. Because I was like, wait a minute, he had leftovers too. So he has Roserade and one more Pokemon, but like I said, the Weezing pretty much walls him out. Now Roserade is part Poison type, so it's not like I can use Sludge Bomb to any real effect here, but I do have Fire Blast. Now he went for Synthesis there, but I'm going to take off half his health with Fire, well, more than half his health with Fire Blast. He goes for Giga Drain. It's not going to be really enough to really make him survive another Fire Blast. But unfortunately, I missed Fire Blast. Can you believe it? And he's constantly getting health back from his Black Sludge. Or I'm getting health back from Black Sludge. He's getting health back as well. He goes for Giga Drain. I'm like, oh my god, Fire Blast hit him. So that time it hit and Roserade goes down. So his last Pokemon is... It's Sceptile. Now, I absolutely know... He goes for Hidden Power. That's going to take down Weezing, but I have two more Pokemon. I know it's not a Mega. If this was Mega Sceptile, he would have brought it out earlier. He knows how to use Mega Sceptile. So, Hidden Power, I'm not sure which Hidden Power it is. I just went for U-Turn just because that's really good damage, and then swapped into Wailord. I I think he's locked into Hidden Power. He definitely has a choice item, and since Whale Lord it wasn't super effective, I guess that was probably Hidden Power Ice. I take him down with the Ice Beam, and that is game. So really great time playing with Zane. Just a decent kid, and I'll probably play with him more in the future. So you might see more matches with him. But since we played for several hours, I figured I could just show a video that's just him. So I'll see you guys real soon. I actually have almost enough matches that are not him to do another video, so it's probably not going to be that long until the next one. See you then.